Morning, folks. Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Skees. I'm the Director of Media for TAPS. Thank you for joining us for this Volleyball Playoffs information session for 2022. I am joined today by Brian Bunselmeyer, TAPS Executive Director, Robert Huckabee, TAPS Associate Director and Director of Compliance, Steve Prudhomme, TAPS Associate Director, and Steve Huhulan, TAPS Director of Athletics. Will Dixon from the TAPS office staff is helping us out behind the keyboard today. This information session is going to cover everything you need to know for Volleyball Playoffs 2022. It's going to be available on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/TAPSBiz. Also on the resources tab on the TAPS website. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
Thank you, John. Thank you to everybody. Good luck in the playoffs as we get ready to go forward with the 2022 volleyball playoffs. COVID seems to be a distant memory as we move forward, and we're glad to be back to a more normal opportunity. As a reminder, we have had to make some schedule changes. We had to withdraw from the area regional tournament, so those dates are now shown on the TAPS calendar. We'll get into dates and concerns in a little bit. Just want to thank everybody for your flexibility and thank everybody for the opportunity to provide these championships as we move forward. The brackets are posted. Will Dixon in our office keeps those up to date. So as we go forward, the more information you can share with us, the better off our brackets and the better off to the public it looks. Robert, do me a favor and talk a little bit about game administrators and what our expectations are for that.
All right. Thank you, Brian. One of the most important things you'll have at all of your playoff games is a game administrator. Those are required in all playoffs for both teams. So even if there's a home team and they're hosting it, obviously they'll have their administrator. The visiting team needs to provide a game administrator as well. That'll be true throughout all playoff games. Game administrators need to visit in advance. If you're the visiting team, obviously you need to get there in time for your fans and team to arrive, kind of get the lay of the land there, what the facility looks like, visit with the other game administrator, introduce yourself, and make sure between the two of you, you've got everything covered for your respective teams. Obviously, during the contest, you'll be keeping an eye on your team, your coaches, and your fans, and working together with that. And then after the contest is over, make sure all the fans and teams can exit appropriately, and the home team or that one responsible for the facility will be assisting the officials as well. So remember, game administrator required for both. Make sure that you have that worked out and visit and communicate in advance. Let's talk about game details. Steve Huhulan, pick that up for us if you would.
Sure. There are a lot of game details that you need to come to an agreement with and to go over with your opposing school. Those can be found in Section 141 of the TAPS bylaws. Those include date, time, location, many other details. First of all, your dates are found on the TAPS calendar. You can play at an earlier date if by mutual agreement you decide on that. To play at a later date, you really need to get permission from the TAPS office because this might interfere with the next round of the playoffs. Time of the game is by mutual agreement, or if you cannot come to a mutual agreement, then you resort to a coin toss. Location, the higher seed is home in by district and area. A regional round is at a neutral site. Once again, those details can be found in Section 141. You do need to come to some kind of agreement on admission and gate, how much you're going to charge. The maximum you could charge is $10 for adults and $5 for students. We understand that there are some schools out there that allow their students to come free. That is great, but make sure that both schools allow their students to come free. Make sure that it's uniform across the board. Obviously, all TAPS approved passes must be accepted. But also, there are all kinds of other details that need to be covered and arranged for. Health and safety of this game. If the home team is going to have a trainer, make sure that that trainer is available for both teams, or an agreement that each of you are going to bring your own trainer. Security. Security is highly recommended by TAPS. If you have some type of media access, whether it be live streaming or radio, both schools own the rights to their own game. Both schools should be allowed to either live stream or radio broadcast. If you have photographers, make sure that access is allowed for both schools. Steve Prudhomme, why don't you talk to us about officials?
Oh, officials. Listen carefully and listen well. Officials need to be mutually agreed upon by both teams. The home team does not get to just bring their chapter unless that's been agreed to. So make sure there's conversation, there's agreement, and with that becomes responsibility because they're the people that you're going to be hiring to call this game. Requirement is for a referee and umpire and 2 line judges, and these need to be from the chapter if possible. Payment. It's the home team's responsibility to pay the officials. We don't split up the pay sheets and one will take one the other. Home team pays, and we'll talk about the financial responsibility a little bit later. Also use the TAPS approved pay scale. That's on the TAPS website. If you go to officials, you scroll down to that, you look on the page, and you'll find that pay scale. So please read it carefully. And again, what round of the playoffs and what you're doing. So make sure you're being consistent. Site-based officials. That means the official book, libero, tracker, scoreboard operator, all these folks are going to be provided by the home team or the host site, depending on where you are. They need to be adults. Make sure that they understand that they are officials. When they are in that capacity, they're not there to cheerlead. They're not there to give advice to the officials. They're there to do their job as official book, libero tracker, and scoreboard operator. So again, we need them to proceed in a very professional manner and to support what's going on at the game. And again, there needs to be conversation, there needs to be agreement, and there also needs to be a plan for both teams talking about the officials. And when the game is over, those are the guys that you hire. Sometimes we get a call, why did TAPS bring these officials? We did not. We give you from the approved chapters. You got TASO and the approved chapters, and from that pool is where the officials must be chosen from. Moving on to game finances. Brian.
When we talk about the game finances, I think in all contests that's a big issue if I'm an athletic director, maybe not as big an issue if I'm the coach. Hopefully the coach is focused on the game and the AD is focused on the finances. But remember, we do have to cover the facility workers such as gate. Something else that's kind of overlooked, if somebody is charging you for your maintenance or doing that, make sure that that's included in your financial load. Security, it's a big issue this year, so make sure that you've both agreed and that security is taken care of appropriately. Health and safety, if you're going to have a trainer, if you don't already have one that comes to all the games, if you're going to agree to have a trainer, make sure someone is there to pay them. And again, like Steve said, we've had a couple of issues already this year. We don't want more issues. Officials need to get paid for the services they owed in a timely manner, preferably that day or shortly thereafter. As we go to game finances, the home game, if you're the home team, you bear all the expense. You do get to retain the concession stand earnings. If you have money from the gate afterwards, after you've paid the officials, after you've taken care of your facility cost and all of your workers, then that profit is split between the two teams. If it's a neutral site game, usually the team that's arranging the site or usually the one that was in becoming the home team, they should bear all responsibility of payment. So again, expenses are split between the two teams, but let's make sure that one team is making sure everybody gets paid while the other team, if funds are owed, would come back. Again, if there is profit on the back end, then you would split that evenly. Robert, we hope that we have auxiliary groups add to the fan base when they come. Tell us a little bit more on the auxiliary group and our expectations.
Thank you, Brian. Another thing you have to think about ahead of time, if you're going to bring home or visitor, regardless of the site, if you're going to bring cheerleaders, a dance team, student groups that might normally come to your particular game and support, band, drumline, any of those kind of auxiliary groups, talk about that in advance. Nobody wants surprises. The visiting team or both teams at a neutral site don't want to show up and not know where to go, what to do. All that can be found, those specific details, in Section 138 of the bylaws, when you can and can't play if you're a band or a drum line. And the most important thing might be where those particular groups are going to sit in the particular gym or arena. That's important. There's not a halftime at a volleyball game like there is in other sports, so some of those might not come, or they might come to support the team and may not perform. But once again, just make sure both game administrators, ADs, have visited and know what the expectation is, so when those groups arrive, you can get them seated. They can be there. They can cheer and support your particular team, and that way there are no surprises. Let's talk a little bit about the official ball. Steve, Prudhomme.
Yes, we have a new partner this year in Baden, and we're thrilled to have them. The official volleyball is the Baden Perfection. So anytime that the ball is in play in the game, it needs to be a Baden perfection. You can use what you want for warm-up, but make sure both teams are checking and make sure you have that in play as we go through. Again, we're very thrilled to have Baden as our newest official ball of TAPS. Now, Coach O'Hewlin, can you talk a little bit about score reporting? You've been doing a lot of that this fall.
Be glad to. As our teams begin to advance through the bracket, score reporting becomes very important. Schools need to be able to plan for the next round of the playoffs. They need to know who they're going to play. So, first of all, both teams need to enter their playoff score into rank 1. Secondly, the winning coach needs to go over to our website, and Will, if you can go there at www.taps.biz, the winning coach, and if you can see here, if you click on athletics, and click on this yellow playoff game reporting form, the winning coach will fill this form out, and so that alerts us as to how we should fill out that bracket. Robert, can you talk about warm-up games?
Be glad to. You are allowed to have one warm-up game per each round of the playoffs. That's per each round of the playoffs. It can't interfere with the actual playing of your game, but you are allowed, if you can find a warm-up game, you are allowed to do that. Still needs to be an eligible opponent under TAPS rules, so make sure you pay attention to that. If you happen to have a bye in the first round, you would be allowed to have a warm-up game during that round of the playoffs, and then you could have another one when you move on to the next round. This does not count against your game limits. Your game limits, as defined in the bylaws, end when you're done with district certification. So if you have any questions about that, reach out to us. I know a lot of our schools do have a little gap in there, and they do try to squeeze in a warm-up game. You are allowed to do that. Just make sure you keep in mind all those details. Steve Prudhomme, go over our schedule with us for our Final Four.
Sure will. As you can see, we'll have this Final Four schedule posted up on the volleyball webpage under championship information. We've moved a little bit around with our 2 host sites to get them in, but we are so appreciative of University High School and Robinson High School for hosting again this year. Moving into the Final Four, as you qualify, you need to look for information to come to those qualifiers for the Final Four for a call. We'll go over more details. We'll be sending more information as you get closer to the Final Four. And like I said, we're going to be at 2 good sites with good people, and we're very excited. Coach O'Hewlin, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Sure. We are really excited as we enter our first playoff season of the year. One thing that I hope you heard over and over again is the phrase mutual agreement. Make sure that as you are coming to an agreement with these schools, that you cooperate with each other, you keep each other's interests in mind as you come to an agreement as to where you're going to play, when you're going to play, and all the details that go behind having a good playoff game. Robert, do you have anything else?
One other thing that does come up is noisemakers and those kind of things at our TAPS events. That's found in Section 138, Prohibited Activities. There's a long list of things in there. But keep in mind, in all events that are held inside a field house or gym, that noisemakers are not allowed. So no noisemakers at our inside events. Megaphones can be used by cheerleaders only. They can't bang them on the floor. We don't want them doing that as well. But that's something we run across frequently throughout the year. At our outside activities, football or soccer games, there are certain noisemakers that are allowed, but those are not allowed inside facilities.
I think the easy way is when you come indoors, leave the thunder sticks and the rattle cans outside. Everybody's going to be a little more appreciative when the day is done. I've been taking a few notes as we've gone around the table here today. One thing that comes to my mind on the game administrator, we've heard it over the years, is I'm the visiting team. I'm going quite a bit. I can't get an administrator to go. You still need to designate someone in your travel party that is going to be the game administrator. So each school, especially if you're the visitor, need to designate someone that is going to be on site to be that game administrator. We talked a little bit about passes. As a reminder, the Texas high school coaches, the Texas girls coaches, the TAPS pass, those will all be honored. We have that list on the website. What will not be honored for free admission is the district passes. A lot of times by the time we get to post-district, by the time you get to by-district and area, those district passes that you have shared amongst your schools are no longer eligible, even if it's 2 district opponents coming back to face each other in the area or the regional or state round. District passes are no longer accepted. One one other thing that came to my mind was we are obviously using TASO and TAPS approved chapters, so both of those are agreed upon. They're on the TAPS website. We'll kick over there in just a second. But just remember, again, and I think we've all said the word mutually agreed upon, make sure that the officials are mutually agreed upon. And the level of competition always comes to my mind when we're talking about officials. The more information you can give them on what to expect for the game, the better off they can do as far as scheduling a crew. So if this is going to be a really high-level contest, and some of them will be, make sure that the officials that you get are up to the task as best as you can request. At least you've made the prompt. Will do me a favor and bounce over to the TAPS website real quick. That's www.taps.biz. So we're going to bounce back over there. Once again, walk you through. We'll go to the athletics page, click on the word athletics, and then click on the word volleyball and scroll down. If you're on your phone, you got to scroll quite a bit with that finger, but you'll get there. Championship information will be updated. The volleyball, the approved balls are there. Everything that we have is going to be showing up there fairly quickly as we head into the postseason of play. So again, www.taps.biz. Info, I-N-F-O, at taps.biz is the email. 254-947-9268 is the phone number. www.taps.biz. Info, I-N-F-O, at taps.biz is the website. I'm sorry, the email. And 254-947-9268 is the phone number. John Skis, our director of media, talk to us a little bit about the media and what they can do to help you along the road as we go through the playoffs.
Well, folks, we've got our official volleyball Twitter. That's at Taps Volleyball. We'd appreciate it if your teams would give us a follow. Let us know how you're doing. Mention us on things, tag us on things, and we like to retweet those things. That's also where you're going to see our updates and any information related to closer to the championships, anything like that. We're going to be posting there, as well as graphics as we move through. As well as we move through the playoffs. We've also got our weekly podcast, This Week in Taps. We're going to try to include results as we go through the playoffs in there. So that's score reporting is very important to get that in. We record and publish Monday mornings. So if we have to wait on your scores, you're going to be the people left out, and we don't want to do that. So please get those in so Will and Steve can get that information updated for me. And I believe that's it. I'm going to hand it back to Brian, and we're going to be done.
Again, thank you for your patience as we move forward through the season, as we get into the playoff championships. We look forward to crowning our 6 champions. But again, coming out of COVID, more and more, I just sit here and I think to myself that it is extremely important to participate. Yes, we crown champions, but everyone has been successful that's played this year. We've had a few teams that weren't able to make teams. We've had a few teams that weren't able to conclude the season. So if you made it to the end, win, lose, or draw, congratulations to all of you. Thank you again for your support of TAPS. Thank you for being in TAPS. We look forward to helping you. If you need anything, reach out to us. Taps.biz is the website. Info@taps.biz is the email.